You know when you have conversations with people, or you listen to a conversation, and then you move on, and then later on you wonder, whatever happened to them? Where did everything go? And that's what happens with Egg. We come back for a two-parter, see where she's at now, especially how we ended our conversation, which was that she didn't give 100% to her relationships. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's a whole conversation on its own. Can we have it? She said yes. So we're back. And I'm asking her how she felt about listening back to that conversation, what she learnt about herself, and what she's doing now. What's really interesting is everything's changed again, but that's for another day. So as always, if you have any questions, comments, feedback, I'm all ears. Just keep it kind. But also, how about hitting that subscribe button? Maybe like it, maybe review it. I'd appreciate it. Cheers, pals. Egg, you're back.
Yeah.
And I have to say, straight after we had our conversation, I was like, for fuck's sake, we're going to need to talk again.
And I'm delighted about that because I love having that.
But I was like, so I do a lot of thinking randomly when I'm like brushing my teeth, when I'm in the shower, random shit happened. Like that's where my brain is. And I was like, the end of that, we go through the whole conversation and then at the end, I'm like, we're going to wrap this up and all this shit. But you drop in some stuff and I'm like, and then I get stuck on that. I'm stuck on the end of that conversation and what that actually means for everything you have just said.
Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise for me as well, to be honest. And
Really?
I was thinking when I'm out like walking and running, so then I had loads of thinking time as well. So it's good to collate some of that thinking that we've both been doing in our random lives back over here.
Indeed. All right, so I did put out today, if anybody had any questions for you. Interesting enough, people did. Let's kick off with those. However, I do have one question before we do, which is, one, how was it after you had that conversation with me? But also, how was it after we put it out there publicly? There was no like, oh shit, uh-oh.
No, I felt fine after we had the conversation, and it was really interesting to look back on it. And putting it out there is fine. I didn't say anything that I'm not comfortable to say to people.
Yeah.
But it was good to have the opportunity to listen back beforehand just to check. And it's been a really useful snapshot of a point in time. And it's made me realize that you change how you think so frequently. And that's been really interesting for me, is we had that conversation at a point in time, and that's what I thought and what I felt at that moment. And I realized that, we're on this journey and stuff already has changed for me.
Yeah.
And so that's really interesting. And it's cool to look back on it and be like, wow, that's where I was there, and look at where I am now. And some of the stuff still is completely relevant. And some stuff is going to be what I always think, and some stuff you just change.
Like the babies, right? The babies is always, that's never going to change.
Still here for the puppies.
Still here for the puppies, not the babies. Puppy babies, but that's it. Okay. No, that I to be honest, I'm just glad that you had no like, oh fuck, like anxiety of it going out. Because I think sometimes we say things, we have that conversation, we're really open, and then all of a sudden we have that dread afterwards going, did I say too much? Or anything like that. So I'm glad that wasn't the case. The conversation we had at the time of recording this one actually only went out like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But we had that conversation
about 2 months.
2 months, yeah. So
it feels like a really short amount of time where quite a lot changed. But I
guess
it's life, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, lots changes in 2 months. I think we've got into the vibe now where like you could just wake up and like, all right, what's happening now? Nothing is slow anymore. Everything's changing all the time. I think that's just the way the world is now. which is pretty fucking chaotic. But
it's fast paced, and it's also, I feel like it's this period of our lives for like the age we are and stuff that's going on. And particularly in my life, there's been a lot of change in the last year. And I've kind of feel like I'm coming to the end of all that change now. Still feels like all that stuff is settling.
Yeah. So as we get into the questions, we actually had a comment from somebody, which was that how nice it was to hear someone talk about getting divorced and there being like no animosity there, like no hate, no, you know, this, that, and the other. And I guess because we just live in a world where divorce normally means that everybody hates each other and you can't see eye to eye and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, some people are like very, wow, that's refreshing.
Yeah, do you know, it's really weird because some of the people I've met recently who are like new in my life have been like, oh, congratulations, when I tell them I've just got divorced. And I'm off. It doesn't feel like the right thing to say or to hear. Because it's not like, it's sad, isn't it? Any relationship ending is sad when you've had a great relationship with somebody. So, I find that a really weird concept because a lot of people are like so desperate to be out of it. And when it's all over, they feel this massive relief. And I guess it wasn't really like that for me.
Yeah. But yeah, so, hey, man, goals for some people if they're looking to get divorced. But like, it's a bit of a shame, but sure. So odd goal to have, but hey, here for it. All right. So one of the questions that we got was interesting, actually. I didn't think this would come up, but I guess it would do because of the end, which is, did you give 100% of you during your marriage?
I thought about that a lot after we had this conversation. And reflectively, I don't think I did. Okay.
I don't think anybody's going to be surprised by that.
No.
But at the same time, yeah, okay.
And I feel, that's to be honest, a bit I feel most awkward about talking about, because I feel bad for that. And I'm like, did I ever really fully invest myself emotionally in this relationship? And and honestly, when I really objectively look back, I don't think I did. I think there were a lot of great things about that relationship, and it was about feeling safe, feeling secure, feeling comfortable, feeling like content. Loads of really good stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think like emotionally I was ever fully there.
It feels like, because just looking at your face, and that it does feel like it maybe is uncomfortable and a little bit awkward to kind of say that out loud.
Yeah, because now I feel guilty about it.
Okay.
And I'm not sure had I don't think our relationship was really like that. We were both quite reserved emotionally. And that was part of how we bonded, I guess. I said in the last time we spoke that a lot of the like stuff like politically, all that kind of stuff that we were really similar on. And yeah, the way we saw the world was quite similar in a lot of ways. And neither of us were like, we were clear communicators, but we weren't like, neither of us were really super self-aware emotionally. And that worked quite well because we were like it was pretty rational. It felt like a really rational relationship in that way. And equally, I'm not going to talk to her about this, but I mean, it would be really interesting to see how she felt on reflection about all that. But at the time, I feel like I'm in it. I'm fully invested in it. I'm fully invested in this relationship.
Yeah.
But I was invested in a different way.
Yeah.
I wasn't emotionally.
Yeah. But that can make sense though, because you're almost getting what you need at that point in time. And that's what it was. And if you were both coming to the table in the same kind of capacity, then I suppose that, is it really a place where you should feel guilt because you were both?
No, exactly. And I feel guilty now because I am more emotionally aware and I'm opening myself up a bit more in that way.
Yeah.
Now it makes me feel uncomfortable because I'm like, oh, I could have given more.
Mm. Yeah.
But maybe I didn't know that at the time or didn't feel that at the time.
Yeah. And then that comes back to just how you grow, right? Like your experiences shape you, and you can only really get a true reflection and true growth out of being aware. And if you're not totally aware yet, I mean, even then, like, and you're not ready to kind of accept it and be open and all that shit, then that's where you're at, and that's cool. But no one's hating each other, which is another good thing. So it's not like anybody's sitting there in resentment and like, you didn't love me enough. And
no, absolutely not. And it's not like I'd go back and change anything either. So yeah, I just I feel a bit awkward about it, but only in my own like self-reflection.
Yeah, I get that. I can totally understand that. Shifting gears, and this next question.
Yeah.
We had another question from somebody, and basically it says, you're on the dating apps, we want all the goss.
Love it. That's not a question.
No, we want all the, it's a request. We want all the egg, we want all the goss. Many exclamation marks after that. So it's coming from someone that is also on the dating apps and has many stories to tell. Is there any movement? It's been 2 months. You've been dating. Have you added yourself?
I'm not on the dating apps right now. I've come off. Yeah.
2 months.
Yeah,
2 months in. All right.
I'm fully off. Last year when I first went on there, I actually went on and off like 3 separate times.
Okay.
Because I went on there and then I was like, oh, you go through a load of dates and you're like, I can't be asked with this anymore. Delete it. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, right, bored now. Go back on. So I think it was 3 or 4 times I was on and off there. And really frustratingly with the app I was using, with the hair one, you can't sort of, I don't think you can deactivate it. You've either got to have it live or you don't have it at all. And I'm pretty sure I didn't ever manage to delete one, but just couldn't remember my login or how I logged in. So there might be one of me floating around on there somewhere.
Okay.
Sure. So what's the goss? Well, there's no goss right now, but I mean, the goss before was really fun. And it's really fun sharing all your like dating stories with friends and stuff. I actually found it really a lot of fun because it's just hilarious because I don't think I've had like a single bad date, honestly.
Really? Like not one day where you're like, get me the fuck out of here?
No, nothing like that. I've not had any bad scenarios at all. There's people that I would meet once and be like, do you know what? This is not going to do anything, or you're not for me, or whatever. And then wouldn't see them again. So there's that. But most people are quite nice. I've become friends with loads of them. I keep just making friends from people I've dated. I feel like I've said to people recently, I feel like making new friends is my superpower.
I love that. I went on dates with friends.
Yeah.
I went on dates to find friends. So
I reckon I probably went on like 10 or 11. I met 10 or 11 people last year and into early this year, something like that. And I can definitely count 3 of those who are still here as like good friends who I'm in regular contact with and like do stuff with, which is really nice. It's a great way to meet people. And I think particularly on that one, you can say that you're on there looking for new friends, but I don't really ever trust that is all that somebody is looking for.
Okay.
I don't know. It's a weird thing to go on a dating app and look for friends, isn't it?
Bumble has that though. You can just look for like friends. There's like apps. Isn't Meetup was essentially for people to...
The Meetup's like group activities, not one-on-one.
True.
So I totally understand going to meet up with people with like an interest or something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find it weird to meet friends on a dating app. And if it's an app specifically for meeting friends, that feels different.
Yeah.
And going onto an app that is for dating, being like, I feel like it's a bit of a cop out, like, oh, I'm only here looking for friends, but you've got another agenda. That's how I feel about it.
So when you would get to those people, because I see it a lot, I haven't been on there. I keep meaning to go back. I'm like, oh yeah, I need to check in. And then I don't. When you see the profiles of people where it's just like looking for something casual, looking for friendship, looking like that's it, where you just like swipe, not actually here for friends.
No, I wouldn't swipe. I feel like for me, if people have got similar interests and I think they look all right, then, we'll have an exchange and see what happens. But then it just gets complicated. The most difficult thing is if you are meeting someone and they're maybe like looking for friends, is getting to the point of, can you ask, is this a date or is this a mate date? And that was a question that I had with the girl I'm dating now, where I wasn't sure. It wasn't until after we met for the second time we had to clarify that. And I was like, oh, thank God, because I wasn't quite sure what was happening here.
So hold on, you're on a date and you ask, is it
after the date.
So it was your first date?
No, it was second date.
Hold on. The first and second date, you don't know if it's a date or a mate date.
Well, I wasn't entirely sure. I mean, I had a vibe, but, you sort of doubt yourself a little bit.
But hold on. How was that confused?
Well, you're like, let's meet up. Let's meet up and do something. Yeah, cool.
But your profile literally will state, I'm looking for date.
Well, yeah, but my profile does say like, look, I'm open to like meeting people for friendship or dating or whatever.
There we go. Now I see.
Yeah. So I'm open to, because I think, and that's what I mean, is a lot of the time I have met people on there, and it is I think always at a date, pretty much. But I'm then open to that becoming a friendship should the dating not work out, which, to be honest, most of the time you're not going to connect that well with everybody you meet, and so yeah. But because I'm matching with people on there who do have similar interests, there's just it kind of naturally can quite easily fall into a friendship.
Okay, and so you had to wait until the second date, after the second date, to say, hey, was what just happened?
Yeah.
Is that a date?
Literally, that's pretty much it. Like, yeah, that's pretty much how it went down. And then we had a nice little clarification conversation that was a bit of a relief.
A clarification conversation. I love it. I love that. I may even have to put that as a thing now to people. Can we have a clarification conversation? Because I'm a little bit confused here.
Yeah. And I was actually really awkward about it because I really liked her. And yeah, she was a lot cooler about it than me.
So you're dating one person now. You're not on the apps.
Nope.
Is it a huge thing, or is it just like this is what's happening?
This is what's happening. It's still pretty early days, but I'm serious about it enough that I'm obviously not. I'll come off the apps, and I'm not interested in doing anything else. And I have only got the headspace for her, so yeah. But there's no label on this thing yet. I mean, we are just like seeing how it goes. I don't know at what point you stop calling it dating. We are still technically dating because we meet up and we go on a date. And so it feels like, yeah, dating is still the appropriate word.
Okay. Because how I see that. So there's a couple of things popping into my brain when that, like, you're still technically dating because you're going out on dates. I guess it all depends on what you view as a date, right? Because I have a friend who's now actually married her, the woman she met on Bumble. And I believe their first date was they literally met up at one of their houses and like read books.
Is that a euphemism or I don't know?
No.
Your face. You're like, you've got a cheeky little grin on your face.
No, they literally, they read books, which I think is kind of sweet, but that's not really going out and doing something outside, like, not outside, but outside. At what point did you have a conversation about not dating other people, or is it just that you both
we didn't specifically have that conversation, but we've kind of like floated around just talking about how we feel about monogamy and that kind of stuff, and both clarified that would be our optimum position. So
fucking hell,
there's not a thing being like don't date other people, but I think it's just a mutual respect thing that you know, we're both clear that we're not.
Yeah.
Is it kind of, I think it just shows if you're how serious you are about it. And I'm serious enough about this that I don't want to date other people.
Yeah.
I don't need to keep other avenues open right now.
Other avenues, yeah. Closing all the doors. Stand by. Doors are closing.
Yeah.
Okay. And what does that feel like? Because you seemed pretty confident the last time we spoke about where you're at, how you feel, you know, coming out of a divorce. And I guess that divorce it's not like an instant thing. It's something that sadly takes time. But how does that feel? Like
it feels like a huge change. And this is one of the things that's changed for me since our last conversation, is I was very much at that moment in time, I was very much like, I don't want a relationship. And I'm really happy doing this kind of more casual dating thing because it's really fun and all of that kind of stuff. And I don't know if it's a case, well, I think it's a combination of moving on with parts of my life and parts of my life kind of falling into place, like feeling more settled with like where I am, my new routines, all that kind of stuff. And also just I've met somebody that I really, really like. So I think it's both those things. And potentially, like, I think had I met her 6-8 months before, it wouldn't have been the right time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that, but it feels like from my own headspace and what my head was doing at that time, that wouldn't have been right. So maybe it's just like really is a case of right place, right time.
Yeah, I can totally see that, because the you from 8 months ago to the you from now there's a lot that goes on in between that time, and maybe you weren't ready to like kind of open yourself up and receive that kind of energy. Now, this is more me speaking from where I would probably be at, but is it scary?
Yes, it's really scary. I'm fucking
terrified. I wasn't actually expecting you to answer that like that. I thought you'd be like, no, this is where I'm at.
No, I'm really, I've got so much, like, and for me, I've got, you know, we talked about how I don't care about stuff and confident. I feel a lot of anxiety around this. If for so many different reasons. One, there's this worry about, I'm really happy with my life and where it's at right now and how I'm doing it. And I worry, like, will opening up this part of my life, like, change that? But we've talked quite a lot about that together, and I'm feeling good about that side of things. And because we're both quite busy and quite independent, and there's not like a kind of a dependency issue there, or it doesn't feel unbalanced in that way. And then the other part is just like, it's just about opening myself up emotionally, and like I've got fear that I'm getting quite into this now, and then something will change, and then I'm going to be back to where I was before, and then I'm like, oh fuck it, I'm not going to do this again, because this feels really good right now, and I'm kind of letting myself go with it, whereas usually I'd be like holding back a lot more, letting myself ride this little wave, and I'm just hoping that it kind of keeps going and that we're able to make progress with it, and it keeps building and being good. Because I'm not saying I won't cope, that's absolutely not right, but I just I'm feeling really happy about it, and I just think I don't know, if this were to like get screwed up for whatever reason, then I think I'd pretty much go back to where I was and be like, wow, fuck it, let's just go and meet girls kind of thing. Because I don't think I can keep doing this a lot of times.
I guess. No, I get it. I totally get it. But with that, though, are you in a different, well, based on what you were saying before, you're in a completely different, you're allowing yourself, you're not thinking about it. Like, you're not allowing your thoughts to like keep you in check.
Yeah. I'm definitely like letting the feelings run wild.
Yeah.
I feel a bit out of control.
A bit out of control.
I'm like, wow, what's all this going on in my head? It's crazy shit. But
is that,
it was nice. I'm just like, whatever. Let's just
yeah.
do it.
But this is I guess, is this your first time really allowing yourself to do that?
I would say it's my second time allowing myself to do that. But the first time, I was definitely not in a relationship with that person.
You were definitely not in a relationship with that. Okay. No. Now I'm going to get that person go, what's the gossip there? So I'll just give her your number.
We can't go into that gossip, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I'll just give her your number and you can just be like, listen. Is that first experience what kind of reined you back in?
A little bit.
I was going to say, can you answer it without giving away anything? Like, I mean,
if that whole thing felt super intense, and I felt like I just couldn't cope with that. It was too much, and it was way too like high risk. So yeah, definitely made me think about like, what I want. Yeah. Any kind of relationship. So yeah.
I guess so they shape your experience. Your experiences shape who you are and how you interpret things going forward. So this is, I guess, then this is the second time around, but this time they are available to you. You're available to them.
We're available to each other. And we're
without going to the other side and being like trying to eke out information about that. But like, you're both available to each other.
It feels like we're in a really similar place. In terms of like both kind of coming through a period of like change and self-discovery and all that kind of stuff. It's been really interesting to have those conversations, and I feel like we are, on the same page in a lot of ways.
Wow. And so I can understand maybe the anxiety or the hesitancy about if this didn't work out, not wanting to do it again. But would you really, but then that's kind of saying, okay, well, if we think about it this way, but then that's almost saying, well, when this doesn't work out, and that's not what I mean, but just kind of close yourself off if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Seems kind of a shame considering the work that you've done.
It does seem a shame. It does seem a shame, but it's like before I met her and when I didn't know that she existed, I was happy doing what I was doing. So I didn't know about this. Yeah. I didn't know I could feel this way, whatever. And what I was doing felt good. So I just think, I don't know. It's really difficult because now I'm all confused. But I'm just hoping that it does work out and we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a tough one to answer because you're like, well, I don't really want to go there.
I might feel really differently if, let's say, hypothetical scenario, worst case scenario, this doesn't work out. Yeah, I might be like, I might actually feel like I want to strive to get this feeling again, and I might feel completely differently. And equally, I might be like, depending on what the exact case is, I might be like, do you know what? I need a break, or I just don't know. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Like in not I say not understanding, but like not knowing and not really want to. You can guess a million ways you might do, or a million ways you might feel, but until you actually get there, yeah, no, absolutely. Like I'm changing so much that I don't know how I'm going to react to anything right now. What's that like being? This is what's so weird about being like heading toward, like staring down the barrel of 40. Yeah. And I feel like because when you're 20, and I think this is something that where people kind of write off those that are younger because they're like, oh, you don't know how you really feel. Wait till you're this age and stuff, and write off actually like what they're feeling and stuff. But at the same time, when you're 20, you think that those that are like hitting 40 have this shit figured out. Yeah, and I think so up until my marriage, and we talked about this last time, it felt very much like I just brush everything off, like I don't care. And that is how I felt. And then having that conversation was so interesting because I was like, do I really still feel like this?
Yeah.
Am I just living in the past of like what I've always done? And I actually feel differently now, and I'm way more sensitive or, self-aware, whatever those things are. But so I do think, yeah, you dust a lot of stuff off in your 20s and even your early 30s to some extent. I think as you get older, you do, spend more time thinking about your impact on the world, your impact on other people, all that stuff.
What do you think, having listened back to our conversation the first time around, so you listened back to it afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Did
you listen to it again later on? Or
yeah, I then listened to it again before I shared it to make sure that I was still happy with it.
It's a tough one because, you have all that time and then say 2 months later, you're like, that's not really appropriate right now.
Yeah. But that was what was so interesting is I realized at that moment, okay, I have changed, but I'm still comfortable with what I said.
Yeah, you're still owning what you said. And I appreciate that because that would have been really fucking awkward. How much, in the first instance of listening to that conversation, having that conversation, what do you think was if there was anything, the biggest thing that you kind of learned about yourself or kind of were like, that's the thing?
I think that exactly what I've just said about that whole lacking empathy piece. And I think that is past egg. That's old egg.
Okay.
New egg's more compassionate. Okay. I know she doesn't always seem it, but I think she is. I mean, I think as well, I've gone through loads of this stuff at work recently. Well, in the last year, actually, I've been doing loads of work about being more compassionate at work. And I think I do lack empathy at work because I just need to get shit done. I'm busy, got a lot of important stuff to do, and I need to get stuff done. And I don't have time for people's personal issues. And I've made a really big point of being like, actually, my staff, if they're happier and they feel listened to and they feel that their personal stuff is listened to, will perform better. So that's been a learning curve for me. But yeah, I think I maybe didn't give myself enough credit, and that was what hit me because, as you know, I've been quite involved with big volunteering community in the past few years, and when I look back to these relationships I've had with all these people in that capacity, I do care a lot about them. I do invest a lot of time and energy in their development, and I think, so I don't think I gave myself enough credit for that. So that was my biggest thing that I was like, actually, I do care.
I love that. It's like this little person just running around going, don't care. Oh, wait,
I do. I care about everybody really deeply.
Cue emotional breakdown.
Yes.
but that's the thing, though, is when you open yourself up to compassion and empathy, it can actually be quite tiring. And opening yourself up, especially when you're going through all the things that you're going through, like a divorce, setting up shop on your own, figuring out who you are without the other person, because, you don't have to come home at night and go, have you eaten dinner yet? If, that's the thing.
That's 100% the thing.
100% the thing. It's got then to be like, oh, hang on a minute, I do care about people.
Yeah. But I think it comes down to how you show it. So I had a really interesting conversation with my sister back in January, and when she was helping me move into my house.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for her for coming and helping me. I can't get the words out for that.
Yep.
I'm not a good one for being like all loving with the words. That's just not my thing.
All loving with the words, yeah.
All loving with the words. And I've always really struggled with that.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's where this impression comes from. But I do show how much I care in lots of different ways. that are not spoken ways.
Okay.
So like doing stuff for people, just like, I don't know. I can't put examples on it, but yeah, definitely doing nice things for people, or I don't know, making people feel really comfort, really like considering their needs, that kind of stuff. And that was a big part of like the problem with my marriage, was really considering her needs way above my own all the time. So I think, yeah, not good at saying it, but hopefully good at showing it.
Yeah. I had a conversation with someone about that not long ago, about not being able to say it, but if your actions are strong enough, then you don't need to be constantly saying it. But then again, it all depends on the other person. If they're okay, if they're good with that, it's great. If they're not, jump on, move on.
I'm definitely trying to learn to be better with the words, but I do find it quite uncomfortable.
Oh my God, same. But I'm getting there. A lot of the time with some people, I literally will be like, I appreciate you. I will literally end the call, be like, appreciate you, and be like, chuck it in there.
Put down the phone.
Yeah, but I think in that we're maybe a little bit similar in some ways. I walked around thinking I hated people, and then my world absolutely came crashing down when I watched, so cliche, Brene Brown on her TED talk about how we need human connection. We are wired for human connection. And I was like, bitch, please. How dare you say that to me? How dare you say that we are wired for connection?
But she was actually right.
Oh, for fuck's sake, was she? My whole world changed. My whole world changed in that way. And, working towards all that shit. But it is tiring. And it is, I'm not sure people really quite understand how awkward and uncomfortable it is for people like us that are learning to try to be more vocal. So, yeah. I mean, dude, good job.
Yeah. It's all a journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I'll keep showing it in my own little ways.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting enough, I on this episode, you can on Spotify ask a question or put a poll out there. And so I asked a question, and I asked the question that I did on Instagram, which was the whole tolerate somebody question. So I put out there, how long can you tolerate somebody for? Very quickly, someone responded. Kat, I'm not going to say her last name. I don't even know if it is her last name. So we just call her Kat.
Okay.
We should never tolerate someone. If that stage has arrived, it is time to question ourselves as to why we're picking up on behaviors we find annoying.
Oh, I didn't really see it that way, though. It didn't feel like I was tolerating annoying behavior. It just felt like it's like easy toleration. It was like I wasn't annoyed by her in any way.
So I guess it's the connotation you put to the word tolerate, right?
Yeah. Because it was that's why it was so easy, because it was, I didn't find anything annoying. There was nothing that like grated on me or
Yeah. So for me, it would be, okay, so maybe tolerate has a bit of a too negative connotation to it. How else would you qualify that? How else would you quantify it? How do you want to be around that person?
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just like, can you spend a lot of time with this person without them annoying you? I think I said that last time. So maybe that's getting at it without using the word tolerate. But we could spend loads of time together and it was just fine.
Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting one, because what I'm finding and have always found, especially with when you put a question on social media, is how someone interprets that question anyway. Even if your question is really simple in in the answer that people can give, they put their own agenda or their own spin on it, how they feel about their own. Sometimes I think a reflection of how they feel about their relationship comes through.
Yeah.
And so it's been fascinating. Rachel Murphy commented, depends who it is, which I think is the whole point.
Like I've got some friends who I love dearly, but God, I can't spend a lot of time with them. I cannot tolerate these people for a long amount of time. But I love spending time with them, or people who, like, we often talk about my energy levels, and I talked about this last time, how I can be, a lot for people because I'm quite lively.
Quite lively.
Sure there's some people who can't tolerate me for very long periods, but they love hanging out with me for like 2 hours because they come away like buzzing.
Yeah.
I think it does depend who they are, but I think, and also it depends like what your relationship is like, because obviously with my ex, we were married and we lived together, and so obviously we don't spend every waking hour together because we are out at work. But pretty much out of work, we did spend most of our time together, and there's a lot of time. But if you don't live with somebody, if you've got, I know loads of people now in long-term relationships who don't live together, which I think is a great way to go. And I think in that case, maybe it's not as important.
And I think that again comes back to that how you define a relationship as well, because we've all, I guess, grown up being taught that you get into a relationship, get married, move in together, get married, maybe have babies, and that's kind of it, and you're in each other's pockets, which I think now as each generation goes on, they're starting to explore redefine what a relationship actually looks like to them, without having to justify it to anybody else.
Yeah, and without having to conform to any tradition. So I think people are doing this in so many different ways now, and definitely at our age as well. And I keep coming back to like how old we are, but if a lot of people are divorced or have been in a really significant relationship that they've broken up from, and then there's always, so there's emotional stuff connected to that, but there's also financial stuff connected to that.
Yeah.
And so then you get to this point and you're like, I need to be financially independent.
Yeah.
And that's a really big part of like our current age group and generation is. And then it's like, do you want to get into all that again? Or do you want to be able to just do the whole relationship thing, but really maintain that financial independence? I think that's a really big factor for people. It's definitely a big factor for me.
Do you think, before I go to the next comment, which actually hasn't come in that long ago, do you think you have to be financially compatible to make it work?
No.
Really?
No, I don't. I think you just have to be really clear about what your expectations are.
That was so like, no, that was so clear. That was so clear. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you need to be really, really tight on your boundaries. You have to be clear with like what your spending capacity is. Because when it comes to like the types of things you spend money on and like holidays and that kind of stuff, it needs to be really balanced, that one person isn't going to be really stressed out by that. One person isn't going to be like, fuck it, let's just do whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think so long as you're clear, there's this whole weird thing, isn't it, that we've got in this country where we don't talk about money. I don't really understand why, because, you have got how much you've got, you earn how much you earn. And I think you just need to talk about.
I think that's very true. My last relationship, it wasn't a thing. I mean, I remember at one point she put the phone down on me. I was like, okay, that's not a thing. But for me, I was a debt collector. So money.
Oh, I love the stories from this job.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, it's even the scars. To me, money is a thing, but then I grew up always knowing the financial situation, whether that's right or wrong for a kid to understand that or not. But I always knew the financial situation we were in. And now, even though I haven't been able to explore that in a relationship, I do with my friends. So I have a fantastic, a good friend of mine who is by far in a completely different financial bracket to me, miles. I cannot see her across the field. But there's almost this mutual understanding that we are in different brackets and we do what we can with what we have and never take each other for granted.
Yeah.
And I think, because I always wondered if you have to, because I've seen people couples break down because of financial stuff. So then is it about being financially compatible or just being able to actually communicate expectations?
it's about being able to communicate expectations, definitely. And that's where I think you have to be willing to compromise.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly if you are the bigger earner, you have to be willing to compromise, because that person's going to hold the power, aren't they? Ultimately. And they're going to have to be the one who either winds things down or spends more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I suppose there is a little bit of compatibility, but it's just about talking about it and talking about where your boundaries are. And
yeah,
if you really care about somebody, then you'll find a way to make that work.
Yeah. Another comment we got from that question, so divisive. Years ago, I was dating someone. I knew it wasn't right from the beginning, but I tolerated for various reasons. Got to the point where I didn't want to be in the same room with that person. I left her.
Yeah. What's the question?
Because
this just sounds like a confession.
Not a question, just a confession from the question, which is how long can you tolerate somebody for? Based on this,
quite a long time.
It dwindled.
Yeah.
It dwindled.
I think that does. And I think as people change, you can tolerate them less. And that is exactly the time to move on.
Yeah. And did you find that when you were married, was that a thing for you? Because I don't think we touched on that. Like, was it a thing?
It wasn't about this. I wish I'd never used the word tolerate now. It's opened up this entire can of worms. But it wasn't really about that. It was about lots of other stuff.
Yeah.
And it was about that things becoming unbalanced in lots of ways.
Yeah.
But 100%, I could still spend loads of time with her. That wasn't the issue. It was just lots of other things in our relationship felt unbalanced.
Asking these questions, eventually you do become like, fucking hell. But they are so good because certain things just kick people off, whether it's because they're offended by the word or whether it's because like they've clearly got something to get off their chest.
Yeah. If you give that person an outlet to have a little moan, then it's worth it.
I don't really know what I can say back to that comment, but thanks for sharing. And keep sharing, because hey man, that's a thing. I'm glad you left them.
Exactly. Yeah, go you.
Yeah.
Good for getting out.
Well done. Where'd you go with that one? I don't know. Okay, and so asked you how you felt after listening to it the first time, right? Has much as you've shifted into these 2 months and then kind of re-listened to it, what's the reaction been like from your friends? I mean, has your mum and sister listened to it?
I don't know. They haven't said anything, but I'm hoping not.
Yeah.
Only because we talked about sex.
Yes, we did.
A little bit, but still, and that feels like weird for the family. So if they haven't told me. But my mum's all over my social media, so
yeah,
there's a strong chance. Although I'm not sure if she knows how to get a podcast up, so
that's fine.
Let's just hope not. But yeah, my friends, the friends that have listened to it have just said, they felt like it was a really accurate representation. They enjoyed listening to it. They felt like it's definitely me and what I think. And most of the friends who will listen to it are like people who I'll have these conversations with anyway, to some extent. Probably not as in depth, but people who know like what's going on in my life and where I'm at and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I know it can be, again, for me putting this out there, I'm like, what are people going to think? Fuck it, it's fine. Where do you see, not the relationship that you're kind of like starting to get into now, but you have gone through, from the egg I knew in 2004, as we said the last time when we had this conversation, that we've both gone through some massive changes and you can't not be different to how you were like
nearly 20 years ago.
I was going to go like 18, 19 and not hit the 20, but sure. You can't not acknowledge that you go through massive changes and you're not always going to be the same person that you were. But how do you hope to see yourself in like a year to 5 years time?
To be honest, if I'm where I'm at now in a year's time, I'll be really happy with that. Just feeling like happy and settled in my life, happy with my routines, happy with my friendships. I've built some really lovely new friendships since I've moved and maintained the important ones from before as well. I feel like that's part of my life that's great at the moment, is that I've got great friends, people who I can rely on, old friends who know me really well, new friends who I'm like building really great connections with. And that's so important to me. Friends to chat with, friends to do stuff with, people just to connect with. I think making like daily connections is really important. Going back to what you said before, that is something I really value. And I notice my mood change if I don't make those connections with people. So I make a really, really conscious effort to maintain all my friendships and to make sure I do connect with people and see people as much as is practicable. So I'd like to see that I continue to build and maintain my friendships in a year's time. And I don't know, I'm in really good shape right now, so I'd like to still be fit in a year's time. Literally, in probably the shape of my life at the moment, and maybe that's from being single. It's one of the things I was just chatting to a friend about this morning, and she was like, "Do you think if you get in a relationship, you'll lose your fitness?" I was like, "I hope not." But yeah,
is that you know when people put weight on when they get into a new when they get into new relationships and stuff like that, they put weight on because they're just kind of, I guess, you're going out on dates and just eating. I don't know, like for
that's what people do on dates, isn't it? That's not what I'm doing on my dates.
What are you doing on your dates?
Well, like doing active stuff.
I don't know, just doing active stuff.
Yeah.
All right. What? Give me some tips here.
Like, go out like hiking, climbing.
The thing is, I do actually really love food. So
I love food too.
The thought of sitting in front of somebody, like, and you can't move.
Yeah. So after that second date where I felt really awkward, it was like we'd sat opposite each other having a meal, we actually had breakfast. And that's when I started to feel really weird about it, because I was like, wow, this is like face to face. You know, I spend so much time running with people or walking with people and you're side by side, and it's completely different when you've got that kind of long eye contact scenario, really looking into someone's face quite closely. That made me feel weird.
Just
not because I'm uncomfortable having, doing this kind of, but because I really fancy her.
You really fancied her, so you don't want to look her in the eye for too long.
I didn't know, I was fine looking her in the eye, but then I felt like, oh, weird about it.
I would love to have been a fly on the wall for that, but also just to be in your head at that moment in time and the conversation going on. Do you have weird internal...
No, it was fine. It was actually fine. It was after I left. I had this weird energy about me. It's like this nervous energy because at that point I still didn't know that it was definitely a date.
How long after the date did you ask?
Like
how long after did you have the clarification conversation?
It happened within an hour of like me getting back.
Yeah.
So yeah, I needed to clear that one up.
Did you have a particular thing in your mind about, like, if she said, "Oh, it was just a mate's date," you'd have been like, "Okay, cool."
Yeah, I'd been disappointed, but I'd been like, fair, and I would definitely have tried to maintain a friendship with her because she's great
and looks good too. So
looks amazing.
So why not?
Yeah,
2 birds, 1 stone. I love it. All right, I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm not gonna ask you if there's a question that you have for me because you already had that privilege.
Yeah.
However, is there anything else that you want to put out there? What is there something that I have missed and you're like, hang on a minute? Or unless you actually really want to ask me a question, then I guess.
Well, no, I do want to ask you a question.
Fuck off.
What's changed for you? I want to know, because obviously you've had loads of conversations with other people that haven't gone out yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know if anything has struck a chord with you that you're like, I need to do this in my life, or something that you think you need to like change or evolve into that's come out of one of your conversations.
Oh, interesting one. I think it's really interesting because I've actually spoken to really people with really different stories to tell, and ones that I can't relate to in that kind of specific setting. Interesting enough, the last conversation I had was with somebody that I was like, I really can't relate to where you're at in this space and time. I think it's just the fact that I think it's just very glaringly obvious that I'm still not quite 100% in putting myself out there. Because like I said, like, I'm on the apps, but I'm like, oh yeah, I must go on there. I must check in before it like wipes me out.
Is that something that you want to do? Because I talked last time about what's holding you back, but do you really want that? Or are you just comfortable with where you're at?
I do want that. I do want that. It's just, there's a lot. I feel things, but I'm also a fucking thinker and I think a lot. And
I literally said exactly that earlier this week.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So you think your thoughts hold you back, or?
I think not that my thoughts hold me back, but I think about all the, like, do I have enough time? Do I, like, it's not just that, it's fucking expensive these days. Like, I'm, living alone and having to, pay rent and bills on my own and stuff. That's a whole thing. But you can, if you really want something, you'll find a way, right? But also I find the apps so uncomfortable. I had a conversation with someone not long ago that was funny. And then I went to sleep. That's it. That's all that happened. I got up the next day and I was like, oh, I'll pop in on the app in the evening. She completely disappeared. I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
But like completely disappeared.
Oh, right. Just ghosted.
Like did not exist. It was like we'd never had a conversation on the app like that. The messages had disappeared.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Like ghosting, I get, like, but I don't understand how you just disappear. Like you actually had to delete everything or how that works. But yeah, so I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. Or she
blocked you.
Yeah, or I got blocked. So that's weird.
Fine.
There was nothing bad about that conversation. But that actually was fine. There was nothing about that was like that I took as a rejection or anything. But it did remind me about how I'd rather just meet people in person, even though I'm super awkward, don't recognize when someone's interested, don't always recognize when I'm interested. Like people sometimes have to tell me, you do realize that you look like you're actually interested in this person. I'm like, what? Oh. So yeah, it's just a whole, I can like start going down a spiral of why it doesn't work and why it's not going to work and that I need to be more proactive. So have I learned anything? Yes, I'm not proactive enough in seeking out the opportunity to meet people. But I think it needs to come from it needs to be face to face. Apps just they're just too weird for me. I don't understand them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
That's not even answering the question properly.
Well, I mean, we can get into a little coaching conversation here about like what action are you going to take next? But I think, yeah. It's good to recognize that. But I mean, those people probably could have already told you that, to be honest, beforehand.
Yeah, I think also I'm just maybe being a bit lazy in the fact that I just want it to fall into my lap.
Yeah.
And then it's done.
No, I think that's so common. I've got loads of friends who are on apps and I'm like, have you like done anything? And they're like, exactly that, just waiting for someone to come. And then I've got other friends who are like super proactive. And they're like, I make sure I swipe right 5 times a day, even if it's like a maybe, because you just want to give yourself these opportunities. So I think it can work both ways. But I think you have to do something. You have to take some kind of action just to make yourself feel like you're not like passive in this.
Yeah, exactly that. The problem is, fucking hell, if I was to try and swipe right, it would be really difficult because I don't actually find anybody kind of even like remotely attractive. I don't know. That's not saying I have like huge high standards because I really don't. Look at my past girlfriends. Everybody, I would say, honestly, everybody I've met dating in the last year has looked better in person than they do in their pictures.
Yeah. I think it's the opposite to what everyone says of, like catfishing, or people put on photos that are like 10 years old or whatever. I think you can kind of judge the people who are using accurate photos or not, if you've got any kind of common sense. And people just, their expressions, the way they
Mm.
way their face moves when they talk or laugh. It's just, you can't really capture that in a photo. And it's not until you meet someone and you see what they're really like and what their character is like that you can really tell.
Yeah, and I think in the last trip I tried to do, there was very much a thing about when someone smiles, the learning there was like when someone smiles, that's what makes them beautiful. And I was just like, oh fuck, like in my trip, I was just like, fuck off.
It sounds like a really tacky meme, but I mean, it's, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
It's tricky.
be in my brain when that's all going off. But I do know that's true, because where I found people attractive and then their personalities got into play, I've gone, oh, you're not very attractive at all. There's a lot of butch women out there. I can't say that I find them attractive. There was one that liked me who was holding up a giant fish, and I didn't know that was anything that not just men did in their profile pictures, holding up a giant fish. I don't really know. Wasn't really into that.
I mean, yeah. Well,
You don't know what to do.
Though, isn't it?
You don't know what to do with that one. You're like,
I'm not sure what to do with the giant fish. I mean, I probably would have messaged that person and been like, great fish, or, you know, because I think you can just enter. And what I love is that people have got interests, whatever interests they are. If people care and are passionate about something in their life or something, or can teach you something that you don't know about, I think that's great. And you love learning.
Yeah,
you're so open to that, your capacity for learning. So, you know, if someone can bring something new to you, I reckon you could probably have a whole day where you like learn some stuff about fish, and you'd probably quite enjoy that.
Yeah, problem about the butch bit. But that is very true though. I think that if you're, and this was actually something that was a big indicator for me in my last relationship as well, is that I wasn't interested in what they were doing, which to me was like a big, you're not interested in this person. Yeah. Because if you're not interested in what they're doing and you don't really care about hearing what they do and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's
get out. Yeah, get out. But yeah, so yeah, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
Yeah. There may be a whole conversation with somebody that says, you know, what have you learned throughout this? Because there's themes and things across everything, like, but the main thing is knowing that actually everybody has their insecurities, everybody has their anxieties. No one's walking into these relationships 100% and not thinking about what they look like and how they come across, which is very comforting. All right, well, thanks for that. I really appreciate that you asked me that question. Anyway, thanks for coming back. And
I'm really glad we had the whole conversation about the fish.
Yeah. Oh, okay. But no, I really appreciate you coming back on and hearing the comments and the questions and answering them, but also the fact that you're in a different place now. I love that for you. And I will be checking in to find out all the goss. I have to just reword that and say all the gossip. And I really hope that this goes well for you. All right, goodbye.